Oh no, what have I started now? Alright, so we're out here at the NC Fairlane. Now you might remember we found this a few episodes ago in one of our bushwreck hunter videos, and surprisingly it still has majority of the 5-litre V8 engine still in it. But for today what we're after is the seats, because they're quite a good factory style racing seat. So come have a look and I'll show you why we've chosen these ones for the Cressida. Being at NC Fairlane, it's quite interesting having the seats that are in it, because they're a lot more of a sports orientated bucket seat than they are to factory bucket seats I normally have, which have a lot more cushioning and a lot more plush than what we currently see in here. They kind of work, but they don't really work because of the extra side bolstering and thigh bolstering. I don't know if they're a factory NC option or not, but they're going to be perfect in our little Cressida project. So let's get to pulling them out so that we can see what condition they're actually in. Now we've got the seat completely unbolted. Let's pull her out and see if it's even usable. Oh, there we go. Well, they're a lot lighter than the Cressida one. I pulled them out. There we go. That looks alright. So now we've got these seats out. They look pretty good, but I just noticed something. We have a latch up here, which tells me that these have come out of a two-door car. Because you can lift them up, push it forward, and then your passengers are able to get through into the actual back seat. So another thing that will tell us if these are factory or not, you look on the bottom, we've blown out the cushion. Hopefully we can patch that up, but these look like universal rails. Yep. And then in here we've got the booger welds from where someone has chopped the seat mounts off the factory Fairlane seat and have welded them to these universal mounts. How very interesting. So yeah, these are definitely not factory Ford seats. These are out of some other sort of car, I'm not too sure what, but that means that they have come out of a two-door, which generally are sporting cars, which means that these are going to be great in the Cressida for when we're bashing around in the bush, so long as we can just patch that up. We might have to get some more fabric and just re-tension all those hooks and re-stress that, but that shouldn't be too hard to do. Alright, I'm going to pull the other seat out and I'll meet you guys back in the shed. Well, as you can see, I've got ahead of myself and made quite a mess here in the backyard trying to get these seats to work. So we've ripped out the factory Cressida ones and taken the bottom rails off of those, and then we've welded a little bit of a bar across there. So what I did was bolted these back into their position with the seat off, obviously, welded that on, therefore we know exactly what position they need to be in. And then what we do is we take that and we bring it over here. Oh, it's a bit windy today. And we line it up with our base. I might get a tripod, hang on guys. Right, now I can show you properly with using both my hands. As you can see, these are the seats that have come out of the Fairlane, and we've already taken the rails off. Here's our little jig of our factory rails, and you may not be able to see it probably, but if I line up one of the bolt holes, the other ones are off by like a couple of mil each. So all I got to do is elongate the holes on the rails or drill our own holes, and that's going to fit on absolutely perfect. We've still got adjustment back and forth, and these bars, we'll put one here and we'll put one on the front, and that's going to help support the seat that's collapsed and torn here, as you can see. So this little jig is going to work out really handy for the whole situation. Really, it's really coming together nicely. Now another thing I noticed once I got these seats home, and something I didn't see before, and I'm absolutely chuffed about this. See right there? These are factory Recaros. I got Recaro seats to go on my sports car. This is so cool. Actual made in Germany Recaro. So I have no idea what these come out of. Probably some mid-90s Nissan or Mazda or something like that, I reckon. Early 90s, looking at that pattern. So yeah, having these actual proper Recaros in the seat is fantastic. car. That is one Recaro sports seat in the old Cressida. So we have full movement. Where is it? If I can find a bloody switch. Forwards, backwards, really smooth. Oh, car shaking because we've got no handbrake. Anyway, and it's really comfortable too actually. Having that little bit of a bar across the bottom there helps support the seat, so we're not going to fall through the bottom of this anytime soon. Yeah, I'm really chuffed. It fits nicely, feels good, and now we just got to do it all over again for the driver's side. And for those with a keen eye, you may have noticed something else has changed inside this cabin space. Yes, the gear shifter and selector is now mounted in its home, which is absolutely fantastic. It's not exactly bolted down yet because I have to put the nuts on from underneath, and the transmission's in the way. So next time we pull all the engine and drive line out, we'll bolt this down properly. It's just kind of sitting there at the moment, but that's where it's going to live. We still need to feed the cable through the firewall and down onto the actual transmission itself, but that won't be too hard. We just need to make the hole for where the clutch master would be on the manual version. We're going to feed it through there. We just need to make the hole a little bit larger. And that's not all. Now, when I stopped filming there for a little while, I wasn't quite sitting around twiddling my thumbs. Anytime I could do at night, I was working in the engine bay of this car. So let me show you now what we have changed inside there. And we're really going to do something about this roof. It's a bit close now, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, onto the engine bay. So as I had limited time while I wasn't filming, I focused on doing little jobs that helped progress the build, but weren't too interesting to film. So I've gone through the entire wiring loom from the engine bay and cut out everything that we didn't need. So obviously we don't need any wires for the headlights, for the horns, for the ABS, anything like that, because we're not going to be running it. So I've cut all that out of the loom and I'm left out with pretty much the bare basics. So the loom is in its sort of location as to where that's going to run. Then over this side we've welded in our battery tray, so then we can mount the battery. I still have to make a clamp to hold it all down, and we've also mounted up the fuse box where that's got to go. So that's worked out really nice there packaging wise. We still have a little bit of issue with the fan on the radiator fouling with these sensors, but I fixed that by cutting out a section here, and that allows the radiator to be pulled forward just that little bit. That gives us just enough room to clear that sensor. I've also noticed too, because we've deleted the air conditioning, we need to reroute the belt, and I'm still working out a new path for that. And now the other major issue that I've come across is that on the Fairmont, the cooling bottle reservoir normally sits right here on the strut tower, but there's just not enough room to put it there pretty much. So we're having to do a little bit of thinking, and we're going to move it over to this side where the air intake would normally be, and we will just run a lovely pod filter coming straight out the bonnet. I was hoping to run the factory air box and everything, but we need this space here to pretty much, yeah, have the cooling system work, because I think cooling is more important than intake, yeah, at this point. Okay, so I'll get on to making up this second seat now for the driver's side. The mechanism for that is a little bit more complicated. It's actually connected to each other, and it's got up and down adjustments and all that, so hopefully we can just use the same practice and theory as we did on the passenger side seat. I'm going to stop rambling, get some work done, and hopefully I'm going to cut to that seat being in that car right now. Man, isn't YouTube magic just amazing? Like, if only real builds were actually like that. We just click your fingers and everything's just done. Anyway, a couple hours later, and those flat boards of a seat are out, and we have two new to me, not really new to me, sports seats. Recaro sports seats, racing seats, whatever you might call it. But they look awesome, and they fit very, very snugly and suit my body style anyway. Really nice. So it's kind of amusing because the driver's side, if we go right round, because of my lanky bloody legs, I end up sitting almost in the back seat. But that's a really nice sitting position right there, and so much better because we had to take out all the up and down adjustment because I couldn't make that all work nicely, unfortunately. The seat's a lot lower, and so I don't hit my knees on the bottom of the steering wheel anymore. So the actual positioning of it to the rest of the car is really, really nice. So next job that's been bugging me since I ever got this car is that dent in the roof. Now I previously had fixed this little crease with a forklift, but I couldn't get the rest of the roof, so let's pop that out now because it really bugs me. There we go, the roof from the outside is looking much better there. And it's definitely looking a lot better in there as well. So that is that job done. Next we'll probably end up putting the radiator in and finishing off our cooling system. One thing I did forget to mention that has also been done on this car was we have mounted up our accelerator pedal. So that is all ready to go, and I was able to mount it so we can retain the adjustment so I can move in and out, which is going to be really cool to have. And we're going to put that switch in here, I think it was, a little switch that would normally actuate the aerial on the factory car, but we're going to use it to use on our pedal. And now I think that's it. Oh, I'm really excited about how this car is starting to come together now. It's coming along quite nicely. So next, as I said, we'll finish off our cooling system, mount the radiator, plumb that all up, and wire in the fan so they all work properly. And then the reason we've moved the Cressida into the main working spot in the shed here is because we're going to do a fairly major job, which is change out the rear diff in this. So at the moment it's got a factory E-series diff in it, which is really small and it's just going to snap when we apply the power and the torque from this V8. So I managed to find a LSD diff out of a 2003 Toyota Hilux, and that's going to go in the rear end of this thing, and it's only 20 mil wider, so it's actually going to space the wheels out quite nicely on the back. So that's going to go in. The problem with that is that the Hilux diff is a leaf sprung setup, whereas the Cressida is a coil sprung setup on there. So we're going to have to work out all our angles and everything of where the diff sits, cut all the mounting points off the Cressida diff, and then weld them on to the new Hilux diff in the correct place, so all our angles and bits and that and sideways and measurements I have no idea how to measure, need to all measure up correctly. That's going to be a fairly large involved job, so we'll see that on another episode of Automotive Carnage. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you then. See ya.